president. Do you expect that despite this statement of denial from Paul Manafort, that he will flip? Any indication that this is just a front for something that's to come down the road?
I don't know.
To come down the road.
I don't know. Because he knows he's been his long-term business partner. I think he knows enough to kind of bring him over. So there's something going on behind the scenes. Something is brewing, and it remains a mystery. But I think it's pretty clear that if there's one person who can flip him, it's Rick Gates.
Samantha, the charges that were handed down against Paul Manafort back in October essentially were, I believe it was October, were enough to guarantee, if he was convicted, that Paul Manafort would spend the rest of his life in prison if he was convicted on those charges. What then is the value? What are we now learning about why these additional charges are coming? If he didn't, flip or cooperate then, would these be enough?
I don't think we know. I think that Manafort has maintained his innocence for a long time, and he is innocent until proven guilty. But what we do know from what Gates pled to is that Manafort and Gates have pathologically swindled the U.S. government for at least 9 years. And we don't know exactly when their contacts with Ukraine stopped, whether those were ongoing during the campaign. But I think that what we're all taking away from this week of indictments and charges is that Bob Mueller is just getting started. And with each person that pleads, there's more information that's coming. There's more details that are coming out publicly. And I think it will likely lead to more charges going forward.
Samantha Vinograd, Jack Kingston, Amy Parnes, thank you all. Kingston, Amy Parnes, thank you all. A former NFL player's Instagram account prompts a California school to close.
An activist taking to Twitter to take on the nation's most powerful gun lobby. They're calling on some big-name corporations to end ties.
1200 building last Wednesday. Take up a defensive position. Wait for upwards of 4 minutes before going into that building. And he wasn't the only one who failed to do his job that day, Victor. Now we're learning of 3 other Broward County deputies who didn't take the opportunity to go into that building when they knew there was a shooter inside. According to sources with the Coral Springs Police Department, when they arrived on the scene, they were surprised to find 4 of these Broward deputies outside. Coral Springs police officers then entered the building at the direction of Broward County, and their surprise continued when those deputies didn't appear to follow them in that moment. Now, tapes are being reviewed, and our source cautions to wait for a report that will reveal what's shown on those tapes. We left the house. 2 911 calls were made. One by the mother in this home from the family who'd voluntarily taken him in, and another call from the killer. Listen to them both.
911 emergency, how can I help you?
Yeah, there was a fight in my house. There's a kid and my son.
Okay,
I'm punching him, and now he left the house, but I need somebody here because I'm afraid he comes back and he has a lot of weapons.
What kind of weapon, ma'am?
Let me ask my son. What kind of weapon did he get that he's going to get? A Remington.
Okay, and who did this?
Nicholas Cruz. It's not the first time he put a gun on somebody's head.
911 emergency.
Hi, I was just assaulted now. Someone attacked me. I don't know where I am. I'm new to the area. He was gonna gut me. The thing is, I lost my mother a couple weeks ago, so I'm dealing with a bunch of things right now.
First time we're hearing his mental state described by him.
All right, Kaylee Hartung in Parkland, thank you so much.
CNN senior law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes with us now. He's also former FBI assistant director. Tom, I want to be, really clear here that we have not heard from any of these officers, particularly the latest that we're hearing, these 3 officers that had their guns drawn but were behind their cars and they didn't enter the building. So I want to ask you, is there any instance in which not going into that school would have been protocol?
Well, Christy, ever since Columbine, every police department that I'm aware of is now taught to not wait till you have a lot of backup or wait for a SWAT team to come and get dressed and equipped, but to go right in, and especially while the shots are still being fired, immediately go in and try to identify where that person is and neutralize them. One way or the other, stop the bullets from, being shot. And in this case, you have now possibly up to 4 deputies that did not go in while the shooting was occurring, and then that comes to light because the neighboring police department responding goes right in, and they're shocked to discover that the Broward County deputies didn't go in with them or deputies didn't go in with them or position. But when you have 4 officers from the same department act in unison to not go into that building, and then you have a neighboring department actually go in, it does raise the question of what were they taught, what is their protocol, what kind of drills have they had, to try to find out why they didn't go in.
So let's listen together here to President Trump yesterday speaking at CPAC, and he had this to say about it.
Why do we protect our airports and our banks, our government buildings, but not our schools? It's time to make our schools a much harder target for attackers.
I know it sounded a little muffled there, but he said, why do we protect our airports and our banks, our government buildings, but not our schools? Do you think, Tom, that schools get overlooked somehow?
No, I don't. I think it's definitely almost impossible to completely harden a school. If you have a large high school, it has multiple buildings. Each building has multiple entrances, and you're talking about a small army to even protect one campus like that. And that's a big problem. You can control and funnel all closed all day long, or a movie theater. Movie theaters have the panic doors in case of fire. So these multiplexes with 10 theaters inside, that means at least 20 doors that will exit directly to the outside, and you can try to lock them, and they'll stay locked while a movie is playing, let's say. But if somebody decides to go out one of those doors, they press a bar, go right out the door. So the idea of hardening these targets is very, very problematic.
All righty. Tom Fuentes, always appreciate your perspective, sir. Thank you.
A growing number of big-name corporations have cut ties with the nation's largest gun lobby. This comes as the hashtag #BoycottNRA is gaining traction on Twitter. The First National Bank of Omaha said Thursday it will stop issuing an NRA-branded Visa card, citing customer feedback. 6 rental car companies, including Enterprise and Alamo, they're also ending their discount deals for NRA members.
New this morning, former Miami Dolphins player Jonathan Martin, who accused
Just training and guns. And while that answer has drawn some criticism, one school in Texas feels it's working for them.
I feel protected. I don't feel like they're going to threaten me in any way. I feel like if someone came in, that I know that they're going to handle it.
Also, Ivanka Trump is in South Korea. This is for the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympics, as her father, the president, of course, is imposing the strongest sanctions to date on North Korea. We have reaction live for you from South Korea. Stay close.
Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call 1-800-831-3700.
We are always so glad to have your company. Welcome back. I'm Christy Paul.
I'm Victor Blackwell. Good morning to you. President Trump has suggested that arming adept and highly trained teachers with guns would prevent future school massacres. And as incentive, he proposed giving out bonuses to teachers who undergo the gun training.
Now, the idea, as you know, has been met with both criticism and praise. There's a school in Texas, though, who's already putting the president's proposal into action. Here's CNN's Ed Lavandera.
We'll do whatever's necessary to protect our kids and staff.
This is the stark message that greets you when you walk into one of the two school buildings in Callisburg, Texas. Superintendent Steve Clugston oversees what the school district calls the Guardian program. It's a small force of volunteer school staff allowed to carry a concealed firearm, and Clugston says they're equipped to confront an active shooter.
We don't want to be at the mercy of, somebody that's intent on doing harm. We refuse to be that person.
In the wake of the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, the idea
I believe teachers should teach.
But in some mostly rural communities across the country, the idea of arming teachers is welcomed, even by some students. Like this freshman and junior at Callisburg High School who asked that we not identify them.
I feel protected. I don't feel like they're going to threaten me in any way. I feel like if someone came in, that I know that they're going to handle it. So I feel very protected.
I feel really safe knowing that I can come to school, and if there's an incident that does happen, that they'll be able to protect us.
Out of the roughly 1,000 school districts across the state of Texas, there are about 170 that have a policy of allowing teachers or administrators to carry a firearm on campus. Here in the small town of Callisburg, their Guardian program was implemented about 4 years ago, in large part because the city doesn't have a local police department. They rely on county sheriffs. And in a county this large, it can take many minutes for those deputies to respond to something like a shooting scene inside a school. Clugston says the school's Guardian force undergoes active shooter scenario training once a year and routine target practice at gun ranges. But critics say that isn't enough. The school officer at Stoneman Douglas face the same ordeal. They won't flinch.
We're trying to put our teachers in a position to be better equipped to protect their kids. And I have complete faith in our team that they're willing to stand up and protect our people.
The armed teachers here haven't faced the worst case scenario. So the question remains, how will they react if they're forced to face a killer? Ed Lavandera, CNN, Callisburg, Texas.
All right, joining me now is Dr. Marquenta Sands Hall. She's the Executive Director of Safety and Security at Atlanta Public Schools. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So let's start here where Ed left off. Will armed teachers, that's the proposal from the president, do you believe they will make schools safer?
I think the conversation around arming teachers is a much deeper conversation than just a yes or no.
Okay.
I would hope that we would want to arm our teachers with the tools that they need to become the experts that they need to be in the subject matter areas of teaching and learning, and not making them public safety officers. We need to leave that whole public safety response to law enforcement personnel who are trained to deal with emergencies.
And some teachers say they have enough to do already, in addition to now the president, and many who agree with him want to make them, as you said, these public safety officers as well. I want you to listen to Brandon Huff. He is a senior.
You were trained for this. You were armed, had a bulletproof vest, you were protected more than anybody else who died, who lost their lives, and you did nothing. You froze, you got scared, you did nothing at all. And you could have saved a lot of lives.
That's his message to the Broward County Sheriff's deputies who reportedly waited outside as this shooting was happening. Now, we have not heard from them yet, but what's your response to what you heard there from Brandon?
So, very unfortunate. Law enforcement officers are trained to go directly to the threat and to address the threat. While I can't speak to what happened on that day, what I can say is that when you have a well-trained unit, law enforcement officers, then they are prepared to go and address that threat. And it all just really comes down to training.
To training.
Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of training, the president yesterday at the White House suggested that the reason you should arm the teachers and not potentially invest more in school resource officers, and you were a school resource officer, is that the teachers love their students. Here's what the president said.
A security guard doesn't know the children, doesn't love the children. Pupils, they love their students.
Again, you were an SRO. Did you know the children? Did you love the children?
Of course. Yeah. SROs know their children. Part of their job is to build relationships, working with students and staff. They know their children, they know that environment, and they do love the children. You have to love the job in order to be a school resource officer. Very hard work. It takes dedication and commitment to public service in order to do the job.
So what are some of the solutions? I'm not asking you to solve the entire problem of mass shootings, but are there some incremental changes that can make schools safer?
I think so. I think it all begins with a conversation, ensuring that school safety is at the top of the educational agenda, first of all. And then secondly, making sure that all systems are working collaboratively together to support schools is what builds a comprehensive strategy for school safety.
You absolutely need the resources, but a plan means nothing if people don't execute.
Absolutely.
Dr. Marquenta Sands Hall, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, Christy?
Well, Ivanka Trump is in South Korea now to re-up U.S. pressure on the North to stop its nuclear weapons program.
Trump goes there, offers hyper-controversial solution to school shootings. In a wide-ranging speech Friday at the Conservative Political Action Conference, President Donald Trump suggested how schools should protect themselves against future shootings. Moreover, Trump made his case for immigration reform by reading a poem entitled, "The Snake." According to American Conservative Union Chairman Matt Schlapp, who introduced Trump, there was a record-setting crowd on hand to watch the 45th president's remarks, in what happens to be the 45th annual PAC. Trump began his address on a self-deprecating light note, commenting about hiding his bald spot. By his own admission, the president went off script for significant portions of his speech. One topic he addressed was last week's school shooting in Parkland, Florida. The president said that after listening to the families of victims and law enforcement officials earlier this week, he believes one necessary response is arming gun-adept teachers and school officials with concealed carry weapons. When we declare our schools to be gun-free zones, it just puts our students in danger, Trump declared. He contended that teachers and other school personnel love their students and are in the best place to defend them. Trump said those who are gun proficient, like military veterans and sportsmen, probably make up at least 10 or 20% of any given school's faculty. Trump further argued the added advantage of having designated concealed carry members of the faculty is that potential shooters will not know exactly who they will be facing, which will act as a deterrent. A teacher would have shot the hell out of the Parkland shooter, before he ever knew what happened, said the president. Trump also made the case before the very pro-Second Amendment crowd that background checks need to be bolstered and the mentally ill need to be targeted so they cannot obtain weapons. We have to really strengthen up background checks, Trump stated, adding the changes he is proposing are simply common sense. Near the end of his address, Trump pivoted to talking about immigration reform. I don't want people coming into our country by lottery, the president stated. I want people coming into this country based on merit. He then noted that the terrorist who killed 8 people and injured a dozen in a New York City truck attack last fall came into the country via the lottery system. Trump read a poem called The Snake to illustrate his point. In the tale, a woman takes in an injured poisonous snake and nurses it back to health, only to be bitten when he regains his strength. The dying woman pleads with the snake why, to which the reptile responds with a grin, "Oh shut up, you knew well I was a snake, before you took me in." Trump also emphasized to the crowd of conservative activists the importance of staying vigilant going into the 2018 midterms. You've got to keep up the enthusiasm, Trump exhorted. We've got 7 years to go, folks. What do you think? Scroll down to comment below.